Happy Developer Summit 2021 and welcome to Deep Customization of Hub and Enterprise Sites. My name is Graham and I'm a product engineer on the Hub team. And with me today,
My name is Andrew Tate, and I'm a developer on the Hub team as well.
we have a great agenda for you. We're going to be giving you a very short version overview of the Hub application. Then we're going to show you a case study of how to customize your Hub site to be dynamic to users and workflow. We'll cover some deep customization layout tips and tricks and provide resources throughout and at the end. And then we'll be taking your questions. So what is Hub? It is a cloud-based engagement and collaboration platform that helps customers work more effectively with their communities. And that community word is very broadly defined. It could mean the people that you govern. It could mean businesses or nonprofits you work with. It's basically anybody outside of the walls of your organization or its contractors. Hub comes in two flavors, basic and premium, and has these four main areas of functionality. The first is conveying information on important topics. And with that, we have the Hub site application. Hub sites are easy to use and meant to basically pull together all of the parts of the WebGIS sphere, like apps, maps, dashboards, story maps, experiences, business analysts, infographics, onto a form factor that can blend seamlessly into the internet. It's meant for a non-GIS user and non-programmer, but this being the deep custom talk, we're going to talk about how you can customize the sites with some knowledge of CSS and HTML here in a little bit. Hub sites also are supporting of custom domains. So that means you can run a Hub site on your own URL. We also allows you to share data and content. That's kind of the principal purpose of this via a search-powered catalog that can list thousands of items on Hub sites. So you can basically pick a subset of your ArcGIS Online content and feature it in the search results page of your site. These are how you do what I would call a more one-way sort of engagement where you share things outbound. And that's with Hub Basic, which comes with every subscription to ArcGIS Online. On the other side, we have a product called Hub Premium, which is an upgrade on top of Hub Basic. This packages community identities so that you can give named users to people outside of your organization. And that's so that they can attend events, help contribute to data, get private access to information, crowdsource information, things like that. And finally, we package a lot of templates and team and collaboration content with those identities. So you can form groups of those identities around specific projects or goals or initiatives. You can email them. You can basically get them involved in your WebGIS more directly since you know who they are and since they'll have a login. Similarly, I always like to say Hub has a cousin. The cousin is Enterprise Sites, and this is part of ArcGIS Enterprise. This is an application that takes the core functionality of Hub and makes it available to you on your own installations and deployments. And it lets you make websites and web pages. And the goal there is very similar. It's to feature the content from your enterprise portal to your non-GIS users, be it employees or staff or anonymous users that have access to your systems and networks and things like that. Policies from your employee standard ArcGIS Online organization, from the outsiders that you're inviting in to help you. But you retain control if you have Hub Premium of both organizations. I get asked this pretty frequently. When should I use Hub versus enterprise sites? And really, the answer is when should you use SaaS versus an on-prem product? If you can use ArcGIS Online, it's nice because you don't have to worry about downloads through some resources. We host the infrastructure. You know, a data set goes popular and we take care of it. Hub also is ahead of enterprise sites, which only releases twice a year. So that means if you're ever even if you're using enterprise sites, you should look at Hub to get a feel for what's going to be out in enterprise sites in the next 6 or 12 months. Content distribution network. And we also generate things like robots.txt files for your search engine optimization in listing you high in DuckDuckGo and Google and things like that. Hub does also have a few systems that we've not yet built into enterprise, specifically that custom domain support with HTTPS search generation. Because enterprise, you can run your whole portal on any domain of your choosing and with any certificate of your choosing. It's kind of on you. But Hub does let you multiple domains, which is pretty cool. There's an expanded download system and caching system over the platform. And there's an improved search experience that comes with that. So for that popular data set, it's not going to hit your underlying server too hard. You can also federate data out of Hub using the data JSON resource that's generated from your metadata to federate the data onto things like data.gov and other national data federation sites. And as of now, Hub Premium is the only place that you can license those community identities. They're not able to use ArcGIS Online, and you have reasons to deploy in your looking at today from a building sites perspective and things like that. And it's really good if you need to control the web server and do things like that. It gives you the ability to, technically, you can edit things like the index HTML of enterprise sites because it's all of the data. So let's just take a really quick look just to kind of get a site at one of them. And this is the same for an enterprise site as well. So for today's example, I'm going to pick on alohachallenge.hawaii.gov. So there you can see there's you can see that they're highlighting there's more dashboard embedded here. And then at the top, there's all chosen to share. So in this example, they have 249 items on this site, but I would be willing to bet that this ArcGIS Online organization has more than in terms of on their site. And every single item that's shared this way has a sort of item details experience that lets you browse the data and do things like that, and lets you download it. Do a little bit of an overview of the structure of a site. It's also that can take, you can like blend. So pages that can hang underneath them, and this and you can use them to design these. Let's jump into some of the meat of today's study that is make it more dynamic to your user workflow. So for example, that site that we were just looking at is kind of a one-way consuming of information. Age. So in our life, Netflix's case, it's trying to exchange it money, but we're trying to do today. So let's Jack Dangerman this thing up a little bit, and let's look at some examples that are a little more real to our space. This was a good example for it was used, but to participate and create Earth. they want basically to give you access if you're allowed to, and they have not, you should apply for this or not, because they're targeting other government agencies, people that are on like an approved list of people who get that access. But this is a public election, critical to a set of people, and they want to identify those people. If you're in a group and you choose to sign up, it's this 1-2 punch. So what does this look like? I've talked a lot. It can look a little bit like this. So here's our data point access hub. And right away, we want people to sign up. So you're going to want to design your hub that's very mission forward, very clear. And the activity that we want you to do the most is at the top of the site. So whether that's taking a survey or signing up with Premium, it's right here. And for us, I could click this button. I could also click follow. I can also click sign in. All of those will give me a way to sign up. And when I do that, I'll get this sign up screen that comes with Hub Premium. It's part of our sign in experience. I'm gonna call myself Graham Data Point. And I'm gonna show you what this looks like. Can't type and talk too well at the same time. So this is that email verification step. If I click Google, Facebook, GitHub, something else, all of that would happen automatically. So it's really, really nice. If the people are signing up with social networks, like it happens all very, very quickly. We just need to wait a second for that email to come in. And then we're gonna get that email here. So they'll get an email where they then get to create a user with my new account that I just signed up for. So I'm gonna do G Hudgens data points. And then can't type and talk for the second time. Everybody's gonna learn that I am from the city of Richmond, Virginia, here in the United States. Please don't use that to your advantage. Okay, so now I've signed up and the site has changed because in my scenario, I want to show you how signups can work, but I also want to show you how you can use a survey to make decisions about what data I'm accessing. So in this case, we've signed up and the site layout has added this new section that says you need to do something else. Tell us how you want to use data point in this example. So I click finish registration and I'm taken to a survey. Now this survey is only available to people who sign up. It's not publicly available. So that's one level of filtering. But I'm going to say I'm a scientist and click submit. And as you know or may not know, in survey 123, you can customize this page you see at the end. So it's a good idea if you're doing something like this to make it a nice streamlined workflow that as soon as you finish the survey, you get this return option. And you notice I also got an account updated email because I created an account. And I also got this email that says that I've been granted access to something and it's telling me a few things that I can do. And if I click back into my data point hikes dev, you'll notice the site changed again. And now the block about finishing my registration is gone. There's still a sign up link in case I want to send it to a friend, but it's now giving me access to different resources that are just targeting the type of user that I am. And in this case, there's even a page layout that's in use that's only available to scientists that shows 503 science records. I don't know, the example is kind of falling apart, but it has a story map here and an application embedded below that tells me a little bit about what this is all about. I can read more about, why work on this, and that's all well. And you can kind of see that this site is hopefully a little bit more engaging than, just a one-way share of information. I've become involved now with the community. I have special access to things and we're good. So at this point, let's talk about how we built that and what are some of the ways that that is configured under the hood. So the first thing, if you're using Hub Premium and not a sign-up form, you'll need to go into your community organization and configure new member defaults to drop them into a group. And the group we used, we called incomplete registrations, because that group is going to be people who've signed up, but who have not yet filled out our survey form. And this gives them access to the survey, and this will be used, and we'll show you in a bit, to make the site dynamic and offer different pieces of information at different steps of the game. But the meat of it is using a survey result to change the data or item access of a user. And for that, I'd like to turn it over to Andrew and show how that all works. Andrew?
Thanks, Graham. Yeah, so Graham has just run you through this engaging pattern of give and take with a hub site, and I'm going to dive into kind of the nuts and bolts of how we actually glued this thing together. Undergirding this is the idea of content. So let's say that these blue documents are items in your ArcGIS Online organization. They could be pages, they could be web maps, they could be data sets. Anything basically that you can host in ArcGIS Online. Well, how ArcGIS Online has you customize access to these things is usually with groups. And so these two red circles are my extremely great illustrations of what a group might look like in ArcGIS Online. And here we have a new user named Bob. Bob can't see any of this content. You see it's all grayed out. And that's because he doesn't belong to either of the groups to which some of this content is shared. So if we want Bob to see a certain subset of this content, we can put him into group A. Now he sees the content that's been shared to that group because he belongs to that group. But if we move him out of group A into group B, he sees the other set of content that's shared to group B, but he no longer sees the content that's shared to group A. And as Graham will show you later, hub sites can even riff off of this principle a little bit further with the layout, and that's how you saw the toggling layout depending on what group Bob, the new user, was in. So now I'm going to show you a diagram of the big picture of what we built and how all of these pieces work together, and I'll give you a minute to let it sink in. So here we have our new user, Bob, at the top left, and you just saw him fill out the survey at survey 123. Now the secret sauce here is the bottom right component. And when survey 123 receives a survey response, it sends a post, an HTTP post request to an optional webhook provider. So this survey 123 webhook provider is the component that's going to do whatever automated tasks you want to have happen when the survey has been filled out by someone. In our case, we moved Bob from the new community user group that he got put into as a new user into the scientists group so that he gained access to all of the scientist content in that group. And then we also notified Bob. You remember that Graham, in this case, got a new email asking him to engage with the content and saying that he'd unlocked some new content. Well, ArcGIS Online has that capability. We just need this little service here to signal that it should create a notification for that new user. So the first question when putting something like this together is, where is it going to live? Or in other words, where are we going to host this little service that we have to put together? There are a lot of options. You could host it on-prem. You could host it, in your own servers. My recommendation is generally to go with a cloud provider. So here we have kind of the big three: AWS, Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud up at the top, and then Microsoft Azure at the bottom right. And cloud providers give you maintenance and a degree of cybersecurity for free, which is pretty nice. Also, deployment with the help of some automation tools can be really easy. You don't have to wait on someone, so you'll never be in sort of a depending on someone else to deploy your code, red tape situation, which is pretty nice. So for our demo, we went with AWS because that's what we're familiar with. The second problem when you choose a cloud provider is that although it gives you a lot of stuff for free, configuration can be difficult. In fact, they offer certification courses so that you can learn how to configure things on their platform. So the way that I dealt with this is a technique called infrastructure as code. And I'll illustrate what that means. So here we have a code file on the left. These are gray boxes, but they represent the lines of code in an indented code file. And on our right, we have our cloud provider, so our virtual private cloud. In infrastructure as code, there's a correspondence between these lines of code that we declare and components that we want to have configured and to have show up in our cloud provider. So you can see that this line of code is illustrated as corresponding to this cylinder. Of course, it won't be a cylinder, but here's the block. And then this line of code defines a relationship between these cloud components. And you can see the arrow coming in. It's going to open up an entry point to the World Wide Web. so that people can have some access to our cloud system. Now, in our case, since we chose Amazon Web Services, these funky looking logos mean that we will be using API Gateway to handle the incoming requests. And then it's going to pass that Survey123 webhook request off to AWS Lambda, which is a serverless compute service, which is pretty nice because what that means is that you don't have to worry about the maintenance of a server and you don't have to worry about paying for uptime. All you are credited is the time that your code is actually executing. So it simplifies things quite a bit. And finally, for the infrastructure as code provider, I chose serverless, and it's pretty slick to work with, as I'll show you in a minute. But this serverless.yaml file is the name of the code file that's going to declare how we want our configuration to happen in the cloud. So just a note on pricing before you get worried about it. AWS Lambda is under the free Amazon's free tier, up to 1 million free requests per month and up to 3.2 million seconds of compute time per month. So you'd have to have a pretty hop-in hub site to get past this. And then API Gateway, you get 12 months free up to 1 million API calls received per month. And after that, it does cost something, but it's very little. So you can safely kind of put this up there and see if it works for you, probably without incurring much cost. So let me show you just how easy it is to deploy this thing. So here on the left, here on the right, we'll just run the deploy command and serverless will start deploying our code to our cloud provider. But what serverless is working off of, as I mentioned before, is this serverless.yaml file that we see here on the left. And here we are declaring that we want a function, a Lambda function called webhook, and we're giving it an entry point into our code. And then we are opening, with this HTTP directive, we are opening an AWS API Gateway endpoint with the path of webhook that will be connected to this Lambda function. So how does this all fit in? Well, over here, you see that serverless deployed our code and gave us this URL. And you can see that /webhook here corresponds to this path that we defined right here. So it set all this up for us, which is pretty nice. But this is going to be the webhook URL that Survey123 is going to post to. So if we come over here to our survey and come into settings and webhooks and look at this webhook, this is precisely the URL that we've registered with Survey123. And here we've defined what information about the survey response our service will make use of. So in our case, it's the user information, which is like the username, the first name, the last name, and the submitted record, which will contain, which industry they said they were a part of. In Graham's case, it was scientists. So I'm going to dive a little bit into the code. I'll try not to get too into the weeds, but just give you enough to get started. But just so you know, I put together a README that has instructions for getting all of this set up, talks a little bit about our use case, and of course, we'll be happy to take questions after the talk as well. So without further ado, handler.js is the entry point in our code, kind of like the main function in a Java application. So when Amazon API Gateway receives a request, it's going to wrap that request from Survey123 into an event object and pass it in here to our webhook function. After parsing the body of that request, we use this extract submission info function to extract, well, just do exactly what it says, extract the information that we want about that survey submission. It's pretty simple. Basically, it just has the responsibility of knowing how to get the information that we need from that post request and pass it on to the rest of our application. So in our case, we need the username, and we'll be using that to move the user between groups and to send the user a notification. And we need the first name. That's actually going to come in handy when we send that notification to make it personalized. And finally, the industry, and that's how we know which group to put them in based on their industry. So after getting that submission info, those 3 pieces of information that we need, we're going to come in here to the process survey response function. And in here, we've defined a map data structure, which defines a set of correspondences between these industry identifiers, basically, and groups. And we actually didn't make groups for the bottom 3, but if this was a real example, you would. So we just have one group for science. And then we get that subject group ID from that groups map. And here, this add group users call is doing what you'd expect. It's adding this new user, Bob, to the appropriate industry group. Then we check for errors. And if we haven't found any errors, if that request was successful, then we remove him from the welcome group. And the welcome group is it's my word for what Graham showed you is the new user group that everyone's pushed into. And it's what toggles that survey being visible and not. Because if they've already filled out the survey, we don't want them to see the survey anymore. So we take them out of that group. Finally, we put together our message that we'll be sending to their email using this generate message function. And this create group notification function is what actually sends it off to engage them back with our site and let them know that they've unlocked some unique content specific to themselves. So the final thing I want to highlight is that I've set this up so that you can customize the message that will be sent. And you'll do this in here. You'll see that this looks like HTML if you're familiar with HTML. And you can get away with most of the basic HTML tags. You can't get too fancy because AGO or ArcGIS Online gets rid of a whole bunch of stuff for security reasons, sanitizes it out. But all of this should be fine. And then the thing that isn't HTML are these little placeholders. And if you've ever run a mail merge in MailChimp or something like that, there's usually a place where you can define a template and then insert whoever's first name. And in this case, we're doing their industry as well. And those are inserted, or those values were passed in, just to be clear, right here in the generate message function. So whatever we pass in for first name could be Daffy Duck. That'll show up in the first name field of the notification that the new user receives. So without further ado, I'll turn it back over to Graham, and he's going to take you through some of the nuts and bolts of the site layout and how we customize that.
All right. Thanks, Andrew. That was awesome. I feel like Daffy Duck most days. So let's look at how we make the site dynamic, and we're going to use just a feature called row visibility. So I've switched users to my admin, and I'm going to come in to edit the site. And here we can see kind of under the hood how this works. So at the bottom, we have a sign up card that we use to convert users. This, again, not using Hub Premium, could be a survey. We then have this block that's only visible to certain people. So there's this nice setting for each row that you can basically bind the row to only render for users of a group. Here we're using that incoming incomplete registrations group that everybody gets added to once they sign up. So we only want to show it when they're in that group. And then above, we would have basically the number of rows we need for however many different groups of people we want to show. So the science group in this row is set up to data point scientists. To take advantage of a couple of other features of Hub, data point scientists is what we call supporting team. It's an ArcGIS Online group under the hood, but this gives me the ability that if I was kind of maintaining the site over time and I wanted to like welcome new members, I can also message them manually right here in Hub. So that's a kind of a nice feature that's working in our favor there. Back to the site real quick. We then shared the content to the data point scientists group. And there's also this page here for more layout options, because you don't want to shove everything in rows. It's going to be really problematic. So we link off to this page so that we could have a shared page that's only available to the core team of the site and the data point scientists. It's not available to anybody else. So this is how we do that kind of layout access just for those people that are specific to being in the science community. This is also coming, the row visibility options are coming to enterprise sites in version 10.9 that's coming out here very soon. So look for that here in the future. I wanted to go through a few other things you can customize kind of outside of that scope of this project that are just good to know. This is going to be a little bit of a lightning round, but there are other talks from other dev summits that go in more detail about all the cards, but I wanted to kind of just highlight the most customizable parts of Hub. So just a little bit of preface, the Hub site layout system is a bootstrap grid. That means it's got 12 columns that reflow as screens get smaller. The reason this is good to know is there are class names that come with the bootstrap grid. Specifically, you can target device sizes that you intend for each screen. So meaning like, how big will this thing be allowed to get up to? So like if it's a large column, it'll squish down all nice, but it'll go really wide on a desktop. If you say it's an extra small column, it will stack on a desktop and you'll be able to fit lots of them in. So if you're writing your own HTML on a Hub site and you want to go your own way and not use our drag and drop system, which is using this grid system, you can write HTML using this, and there's good documentation available for you. The other really useful class name to be aware of is the ability to hide stuff on different device sizes. So if you put a hidden dash that device size, SM, MD, LG, XS, you can basically make it so that things show on mobile or desktop in your custom HTML. The other really useful one is image responsive on images. Again, all of the Hub image cards have this in our UI, but if you're writing your own HTML, image responsive will make it fill that bootstrap container versus being the actual size of the image. And that can be really nice because the image will shrink and expand as the screen changes size. Into the custom HTML, there's a couple things to know. You can apply a row CSS class as well. There's this like little text box here in the rows. This is really good for CSS encapsulation. So if I want a red background on a row, and there's a row setting for that, so it's a bad example, but if I put this class on it, I can basically then target things within that row using CSS and only grab, say, the gallery cards that I want to style from this row and not all gallery cards on my site. So you can get some really nice encapsulation using that. When you're targeting Hub features, don't use the IDs that are generated by our framework. Use the class names that have the feature sounding thing. So if you wanted to target that signup card and make it like swivel or do something when you mouse over it, you could do that by just basically targeting class signup card. Don't target the literal. These numbers can change. This should stay the same. I always like to say, don't go too crazy. You can go pretty crazy, but you can do a lot. And to show the extent of how much you can customize this, I wanted to show this site from the Learn ArcGIS team. They've done a lot of work on their little motions and animations and their custom headers, and made this like feel very, very slick. So if you know HTML and CSS, this is all running on a Hub site. You can really make it feel like your own, match your brand style guidelines and things like that. One thing I really recommend for a lot of sites that are going into production is a custom domain. You may have not noticed, but I was running it on my own domain. It's very easy to set up, but I want you to know a few things about it. When you are on a custom domain, your private app embeds will be a little more finicky. And that's because we have to do auth things with the custom domain and then securely handle the auth going to the ArcGIS domain. And browsers are making that trickier, and we're working on solutions to basically come into alignment there. But if you go into another tab and log in with someone else, the embeds on the first site will get the latest ArcGIS login as who it is. And it can be a little awkward if you're switching users a lot, if you're testing different users. So if you're ever testing your site, sign out and sign in to make sure everything is working, because custom domains make things a little more tricky. When we set up a custom domain, we generate a certificate on your behalf, but it's not instant. So you're going to have to wait up to 24 hours for that. Don't be alarmed when that happens. And it's still very much worth doing, because having your domain on a Hub site proves that it's a safe place that's by your organization. So I definitely recommend it. And enterprise, you guys are lucky. You can run the entire enterprise portal on your own domain and you've probably already solved this. So this is really just a bulletin for the Hub folks. The other area you can extend really deeply is the iframe card. So you can iframe more advanced content. You are responsible for making it responsive. So like, for example, in Tableau, there's an adaptive layout option you need to turn on. And you can extend sites with custom hosted code, as this example is here. You can see a screenshot of it right there. The chart card also has some good extensibility. It's good for summarizing, feature services and bars, pies, and scatter plots, and we have some visualizations baked in. But there is a way using the JSON mode to unlock the charting library we're using, which is AM Charts 3. We are working on upgrading that. We use a library called Cedar that wraps a thin abstraction layer between AM Charts and the ArcGIS Online geospatial data format. So you can check these links out if you want to get a handle on this, and you can do some really cool things with overrides to basically tap into the underlying AM chart spec and change things like colors or axis labels or adding like baselines and things like that. It's no substitute for ArcGIS dashboard. Another great solution, build an ArcGIS dashboard and embed that instead if you want to get at some of the more powerful dashboarding. But the advantage of the lightweight charting library is it won't load a full-blown dashboarding application to run just a single chart. So if you can get away with a little chart, it'll make your site faster. So we're here at the end, and thank you so much for staying with us this whole time. And I wanted to give you a couple of resources now. So on Esri.com, we have a lot of links to these resources, so don't feel like you have to write all this down or anything. If you're trying to learn how ArcGIS Hub works, we have training and learn paths and lessons that you can both see Hub Basic kind of working with sites, as well as premium, how to work with community identities. A lot of the great stuff that we've done for all of our conferences is available on YouTube, and we have a Hub playlist as well as a Hub how-to playlist that are available through these links here. We publish a newsletter, so if you sign up for that, you'll get just an email once a month. It's not too advertising-y. It's very much both telling you about what our customers are doing, but also about what's changing and coming up. And it's heavily linked with our blog. So if you want like blog content pushed to you, we editorialize and try to give you just what you need to know about what's coming and what you can take advantage of. We do release frequently, so there's a changelog that's available on hub.arcgis.com, and you can always search hub.arcgis.com for examples. Like go to hub.arcgis.com, type in what you're looking for, click sites, and then kind of see some inspiration. If you're interested in informing our product, we have a user lab, hubuserlab.esri.com. Please sign up and you'll be a part of steering the direction of Hub. We're always looking for more participants from all walks of life. So please give that a look. That's our engagement with you. And so we really want to make that a two-way thing as well. If you need help either strategizing, designing, implementing, Esri Professional Services is here for you as well. There's also Esri partners that have a Hub speciality. And so here's those logos here. And thank you again for so much. I think we're getting ready to take questions, and we're going to turn it over to Katie for that.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to our session, and thank you so much for sticking with us through a little bit of technical difficulties. We're glad you're here. And so you can continue to ask us questions as you have throughout this session. There are a couple that we haven't responded to yet because we figured we would go ahead and answer those now. But yes, feel free. My colleague Clara is here, and so is Andrew, who gave who is presenting a bit in that presentation. So I'd like to start with a question that came in that asks, I would like to authenticate users in a Hub site and make certain items available only to certain users. Is this possible, or are only public items available to access download through Hub sites? So this is a great question. And the answer is that no, you can you can make items available for download to Hubs that are public and private. So you don't need to just share any of the content you want publicly. You can also use Hub sites, even though you can share them publicly, you can totally keep them internal. And using groups, you can put people in teams, something that's kind of built into Hub already. as a way to organize specific audiences who have access to specific groups. You can make content on those sites available to those groups only, that when they're signed in with their ArcGIS Online account, they're the only ones that can view that, even if the site is public. So if you're familiar with ArcGIS Online sharing model, this is a fairly simple task, and I can respond to that comment with a link to our documentation providing more information. So a new one here that I believe Clara will answer from Susan.
Yes, so you asked about iframe height. So iframes can't detect what's inside of them, so they're not aware of the fact that the content has resized and gotten longer. And so that's why we do allow the parameter for you to set what the height is. I recognize that's inconvenient in mobile, so I can get you a little bit more information for like how you might set, because you can use the row classes to set, like, to show and hide different content for mobile. And so you could have the same iframe hidden or a height change that shows on mobile but isn't hidden on desktop. Back to you, Katie.
Sure. Okay, so there's another question here. Andrew, I think you might be able to help us with this one. Will Power Automate be supported for webhooks?
Okay, that's a good question. And I see a similar one about something called Integromat. And to be honest, I've never heard of either of those. I don't think Esri has like a recommendation on this, but it's not a problem. And the reason for that is that any webhook provider, any microservice you set up by yourself as a developer, or any custom solution, the only requirement is that it can receive an HTTP post request from survey123. So if there's a URL you can give survey123 that survey123 can send some data to, and then you want to do something with that data in your webhook provider of choice, you're good. And so it's not like something we have to particularly support, or may lose support in the future. As long as it can receive that HTTP post request from survey123 and do something with the information that it receives, you're good. And what I did in the demo, and I posted the link to the code as well, is just to create a custom implementation of a little service that can receive that request from survey123. So yeah, you're good.
Thanks, Tate. All right. There was another question too about if this video will be made available next week. I believe all of the session videos will become available within 30 days. I would say check back on the Dev Summit website for that, or you can check our Esri events YouTube channel. I don't have that answer off the top of my head, but I do want to say that I've seen that it will be within the next month. And so yes, that would probably be great for the periods of time that it did glitch out a bit there. If you would like to provide your email, I can follow up with you when I know that that session is available. But yeah, check back in about a month. More questions here. So we have, in place of survey123, is there support for smart forms or field maps? I'm not familiar with smart forms. Yeah, or field maps, as in thinking that might be. Take Clara, your thoughts on that one?
I think I do know what smart forms are.
Okay.
These are just other like survey providers. If I am correct on that, I guess we can't get feedback on that, but assuming that that's true, you could iframe those into your site or something like that. But And yeah, if they have the webhook, if they're able to, send that request to a webhook provider once it gets filled out or something like that, you could integrate it on your own. But the one that we support out of the box is Survey 123, because of course that's the Esri offering. And for that, you have the special survey card that you can just drag onto your hub site, and everything's kind of configured there for you, as far as I understand. Clara, anything to add there?
About field maps, no.
Thank you. Oh, it's field maps from Esri. Yes. I do believe that we're looking at better integration workflows that could be spelled out more in our documentation and blogs and articles on how to use Survey 123 field map, or not Survey 123, but field maps and tracker with ArcGIS Hub. So you can stay posted for those. We do recognize that that's something that people are looking at with Hub in addition to Survey 123 integration. Someone asked for a link to the Hub User Lab. I posted that there. You can also find that link on our resources page. And to piggyback off of that, I did want to share an additional survey link. I'll put this in the announcement. We are looking at updating our ArcGIS Hub Gallery, which is a page that hangs off of hub.arcgis.com and showcases customer sites from all over the world. So open data portals, project plan sites, you name it, any type of use case out there for a hub site, we would like to give you an opportunity to showcase that there in our gallery. So I'm making that link available in the announcement. And this is just a brief survey that you can provide to fill out and provide your information and let us know if you would like to be considered for a spot there. To send an email, if you wouldn't mind just putting that there and editing your comment, I'll make sure that I get back to you with that information. So Ken Doman has a question here about, are there ways to schedule changes to content, like adding or removing rows based on event days? Currently, there's not a way to automate scheduling of a hub site, unless maybe Tate has a fun workaround. But I believe that it would be something that, so long as you were grouping the content that you wanted to promote for a given period of time by row, the easiest thing to do would be able to go into your site's edit mode and add or remove that contents row. And that way you're not having to do too much editing. It's all simply delete in one go. Thoughts there at all? Tate, Clara, on a funky little workaround? I'm guessing not.
We do not have time-based scheduling yet, or like automated showing or visibility settings of certain rows based on like time date stamps, unfortunately.
But my 2 cents is that you could do it using ArcPy or, the REST API, or, you could build your own, but yeah, we don't support it out of the box, unfortunately, yet.
It's great to hear what you're interested in using hub sites for, and all of the questions and feedback that you provide to us here, we'll take back to the team and use to not only update our documentation, but also to look at product feature enhancements in our backlog. So it's great to hear, again, what it is you're looking for. And please fill out that survey. If you want to show off any of your sites, especially to see, sometimes people do some really cool things that we're like, oh, wow, happy to see that. So, yeah. Perhaps, okay, so Ted, time for the HubPy. We do have some HubPy notebooks available. I'll grab the link for you on those. Our content team works on those a good bit of time, and they've been putting out some blog posts around specific workflows. And so I'll get that available to you here in one moment.
I actually saw a question come in that I'd like to address. This person, anonymous, says it's probably an ArcGIS Online question, but are there plans to in the future to better organize the items that are created when you work with Hub? And as a background to this, you know, we kind of create some more accessible abstractions in Hub, like creating teams that are on top of ArcGIS Online groups, or creating sites, which are an item type in ArcGIS Online. And that's so that we can make this more accessible to non-GIS people who aren't familiar with the platform and stuff like that. But if you go and do a whole bunch of stuff in Hub, it creates a whole bunch of stuff in your ArcGIS Online organization. And so the people who are familiar with that, who go in there, they can see a lot of stuff that's been created with Hub. And there have been a lot of requests to kind of keep that a little bit cleaner, because you're not supposed to edit that yourself. You're supposed to allow Hub to do the editing of that. So the one, you know, kind of shining piece of progress there is that when you create a site or any other solution-based thing like a page, or when you activate an app from within Hub, all of those things that get created will be stored in their own folder in ArcGIS Online. So that is a nice improvement. I think that it won't just be floating around at the top level of your sort of item directory, but when you create a site, for example, all of the artifacts that we created under the hood will be in that particular folder. So yeah, that's one piece. But, you know, absolutely join the user lab. Absolutely, you know, give us feedback on that as well.
We also have a resource that is available. Again, all of these links that I'm sharing, you can find on the Hub resources page. But there is a link to a deep customization page that provides some code snippets and other tricks that we've commonly seen customers ask for and implement on their Hub sites. And so that's another link that I'll drop here for you. We also will answer any questions at any time that you might have specific to implementations or things that you're trying to add to your site's layout. For example, I'm on GeoNet. It's, I think, since shifted to Esri's community or our community, but if you were familiar with it in the past, GeoNet, that space is where to go if you ever have any things that you would like to reach out to us about. Around styling, CSS, HTML, or even anything fairly basic around, you know, groups management, other things like that. I'm not sure if there are other Hub sessions at Dev Summit available this session or this year or not. Is that something, Clara, I think you'd heard of any sessions at all?
I think we might be at the end of Hub specific like customization ones. There are other members of our team who are speaking, but they're speaking about more nuanced technical topics.
We've given this talk at past Dev Summit. So those are also available. Granted, they were from previous years, but a lot of the content that's covered around just the basis of Hub, ArcGIS Enterprise as well. I have a link here for some HubPy blog posts. And so I'll be replying with that link here in a second when I can find it. Tate, do you think in the bit of time that we have left, maybe for the sections that were glitchy or might have cut out, that maybe there be some high level points that you could call out about the configuration there that you presented? That way, while waiting for this video to come out on YouTube, people could have some high level points that maybe they could draw from, jot down quickly.
Yeah, sure. We're getting the notification that the session is over, but I'll give you the 30-second overview because, yeah, I do realize that things were choppy. Essentially, we use groups in ArcGIS Online to control access to content. And Graham and I used this to give a custom experience to certain groups of people. So like the scientists. And we found out who they were through a survey 123. And then we used that survey 123 and some custom code to move them from a welcome group into a scientists group. And we configured our hub site to show specific content to people in the scientist group and to people in the welcome group. So people in the welcome group would see the survey, they'd go fill it out, we'd move them out of the welcome group, put them into the scientist group, and then our hub site knew to show the scientist row and give them access to that content as well. So that's the kind of thing you can do with this group shunting and the hub site features that we allow for visibility.
Thanks, Tate. So we are out of time, so I appreciate you all for being patient with us today and for sticking in with our Q&A session. And again, if you have any questions, comments, or feedback at any time, reach out to us on our community, previously known as GeoNet. And we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you, everyone. Bye.